There's two things you need to do in this game. I feel you'll lose every time if you don't.
Welcome to Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples, a channel of conversation and board games.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. Today on the channel, we're going to be looking at a little game. Well, it's not necessarily a little game, but it's a game about little lumberjacks in a little world building a little town. Today we're looking at a game from Yellow, all about building a little town. It's a worker placement game. I love worker placement. Do I love this one? Let's find out. Cue the thunder. So the radar overview for Little Town, a worker placement game, resource management. Here you have it set up. You will have a whole bunch of different tiles here, different buildings you can build. I will say that this isn't all of them. There are a few other ones. So every game will feel a little bit different. Each player will get a group of tiny little lumberjack characters. Depending on how many players are playing, will reflect on how many you get. You also get the same color of houses. $3 to start. You'll get a supply of money over here, and then you need resources, and they come in 4 different colors. They look like this. So there you have it. You got the wheat and some fish. You also have rock as well as lumber, trees, however you want to say. Plays over 4 rounds as noted by this little tracker. I will say this, the production of this is amazing. This is hollowed out, looks really cool. The point markers or the victory point markers are also hollowed out. Definitely not necessary, but really cool added touch from Yellow. And of course, whoever is playing or is starting the round gets this little axe as well. So, like I said, this is a worker placement game. Each player will also start, depending on how many players you have, with a few private objectives. So in this case, if this is yours, and if you have at least 6 victory points, or $6, pardon me, anytime on your turn, you gain 2 stars. Stars are victory points. Stars are points. Yeah, victory points. This 3 stars or victory points have more buildings than workers. Activate at least 4 buildings in the same turn. Those things can happen, and which are very, very satisfying. But how does this game play? Well, as mentioned, it's a worker placement game, and you'll be putting your workers on the map and activating the 8 squares around them. You can't really see the squares, but this is a grid pattern. And so let's just say the white player goes and puts their character there. They'd at that point gain 1 fish and 2 lumber. And then it'll come to this player, and they would go up here. They would gain then 1 rock, 1 tree, and 1 fish. As you can see, there's nowhere to get wheat on the board. That is because you must build farms. So come back to the white player. They go to the construction site. So you're either putting your player or character in the construction site and building something, or you're putting them on the board. So let's say this player then wants to build a wheat field, and they want to go right here. At that point, it would cost them 1 wood to do that. They would gain 3 victory points, and whatever's on the bottom, in this case wheat cube, is what would happen when this building would be activated. So they would put it there, put their own little house on top, showing that they own it, and then it would go back to the red player. They want wheat, so they could go there, gain 2 fish, gain 1 tree, and then they could pay the owner of this house $1 to activate the building. So they would give the white player $1. They would be able to then get their 1 wheat, and you would continue to go along the round until all the workers are placed. At that point, the end of the round has one final phase. You got to prepare for the next round, and you need to feed your characters. So depending on how many players you're playing with, in a 2-player game, you get 5 characters, and in a 4-player game, you get, I believe, 3. And so you would have to feed each of them either 1 wheat or 1 fish, because they are hungry. They may be little, but they are hungry and they eat a lot. If you cannot feed them, you lose 3 victory points per character you cannot feed. So you can lose a ton of points if you're not feeding your workers. You would then finish the round, feed everybody. I will say this, at any point you can spend $3, exchange $3 for any one resource. You would have to use it immediately. So you could use that to help feed your players. You take all your workers back, and then you start the next round with the starting player token moving to the person on the left. So as you can see, there's lots of different buildings, and there's lots of spaces to put buildings. So let's just imagine that this gets put here, and this is owned by the red player, and this gets put here, owned by the white player. And let's say also this gets put there, also owned by the white player. So let's, for example's sake, the white player goes there. At that point, they can activate all of these. They would gain 2 fish, they gain 1 tree, and then this they didn't gain anything from. It cost 4 wood, and it got them 10 victory points, but it doesn't have any special ability. But they got 10 points from it. They would activate this, they would gain 3 victory points. They would also, because it's their own building, they would gain a wheat. And they could pay then the red player $1 to gain an additional 3. So as you continue going through this game, you will just build bigger and bigger areas, and you'll be jockeying for position as to which places you want to build your buildings to help you the most. And of course, as I showed you, this would have been activated by that white player. They would have activated at least 4 buildings in the same. They wouldn't have actually. They wouldn't have activated this. But imagine this would have been something they could have activated. They would have activated 4, so they would have gotten their bonus 3 victory points. So that is how you play Little Town. I will say also that the back side of the board has another layout. It's a little bit different, but it just brings a little bit more variety. So there you have it. That is Little Town in a nutshell. Let's check out the final forecast. So the final forecast for Little Town, a small game that plays much larger. As you saw in the radar overview, the production of this is quite nice. The artwork is nice, a lot of wooden components. Of course, you only have those cubes, which are, take it for what it is, they're cubes. They could have been like actually cut out, but I guess for the price they want to stay in, they just put in cubes. But you know what? They cut those stars out for the scoring track. You got that little hammer for the starting player marker, and then you have the round, the round 1, 2, 3, 4 round marker that's hollowed out or cut out as well. So I don't know, production in this is pretty sweet. This game plays a lot like another game that I love. I love this game, but more on that in a moment. Another game that I love, Whistle Mountain, and that is another worker placement game in which the players are building the locations as to where you put your workers. And this is very similar. Yes, you have the ones that are printed on the board. I like it that it's double-sided, so you have some variety, but each game's going to feel different because you have different locations to go to, and you're going to be building every game differently. You're not going to be using all the tiles, depending on what special abilities, or not special abilities, what private objectives everybody has. That'll reflect on which buildings will be built and which buildings will be built at what point in the game and where. So you got like quite a bit of replayability in this game. At the same time, I think everybody who plays this game would say, I would love to have more buildings. Absolutely. I know there's an expansion called the Artisans expansion that's not released yet, but they've been talking about it, and I think it gives special abilities to your workers and stuff, but that's whatever, a side note. But I think more buildings would be cool in this game, but for what it is and what you get and the interesting decisions you have in this game, it's fantastic. I will say this, there's 2 things you need to do in this game. I feel you'll lose every time if you don't. You have to feed your workers, like just straight up. If you don't feed your workers, you're losing 3 victory points per worker. So you do that a couple rounds, and you can like forget about winning. Also, you have to build a building that produces money for yourself. Meaning there's a couple buildings that produce just straight money. So the person who builds that, they can just go activate it, just get money, and then use everybody else's buildings. But there are a few buildings that allow you to, trade a wheat for victory, or trade a wheat for money. I think there's like trade rock for money. You got to build one of those in a game, because if you get shut out in the economy in this and you're not able to pay other people to use their buildings, you are going to have a not enjoyable time. You're not going to enjoy your play of that game, much like my first play of this game. Played at the 4-player count. I didn't build any buildings that produced money, and all the buildings that I did produced victory points, and where I put them on the board, my own fault, or I put them on the board, they got blocked, they didn't get used, no one was using my buildings, and yet, so I didn't have any money because no one was using my buildings. So you have to strategically place your buildings beside where other people are placing theirs, that will kind of piggyback off their buildings, that they will then use your buildings so that you can use their buildings. And so it's got this like nice little tight economy where you need to have money in this game. So those two things, you need to have money and you have to feed your workers. Those are my pro tips. Not pro at all. But anyways, Little Town, I absolutely love this game. This is a fantastic game. If I'm in a mood for, a nice 30 to 60 minutes, probably 2-player can play it maybe under 30 minutes, but even 60 minutes, I don't even think you're getting 60 minutes out of this little box at a 4-player count if all the players know how to play. Man, this is a fantastic game. So if you're looking at, the board gaming hobby, you're not wanting to spend a ton of money, pick up this little gem. Don't overlook this one, because I think that there's a lot of tough choices, fun choices in this game. So Little Town plays much bigger than a Little Town. I'm going to give it 85% Chance Meeples because it's a great game. Check it out. My name is Brent. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Remember, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with the Chance of Meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.